Welcome everyone, today we're starting our exploration of Botany Manor. But before we jump into the video, if this is your first time here or you're returning to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button to join my online community. Now let's get started. Botany Manor is a cozy puzzle game where you play as the main character Arabella Green. She is a retired botanist returning home after some extensive travels. The story is set in 1890, Somerset, and you will be exploring the home, unlocking clues which will help you rediscover strange and mysterious plants, in the hopes of publishing your own book called Forgotten Flora. As you unlock new parts of the manor and gardens, you will uncover the story of the main character and the life she has led. When you first start up the game, you will find yourself in a smog-filled room and will need to figure out how to clear out the air and make our way to the next area. During this playthrough, I will be aiming for 100% completion, so I will be going through all 36 achievements as we go through each chapter. The first item you will find is your book called Forgotten Flora. The book contains the map, which will expand as you unlock more areas. You will also find all the plants you will be growing and the clues you have collected in the different chapters. The first letter we find is from Bennett, welcoming us back to the manor and apologizing for the state of things. Hopefully we can get everything fixed up as we make our way through the house. We have unlocked the first chapter, A Fresh Start. If we open up our book, we can see we will need to find clues to grow our first plant, the windmillwort. We'll need to continue exploring this room to collect all the information we'll need. On our first workstation, we'll find a card explaining how to pot the seeds in order to help them grow. We will also find our first seed packet, which is the windmillwort. The seed has germinated, but we'll need to find the clues to help it fully grow. First we have this boiler-looking thing, and we can change the temperature by turning the wheel. Next up we have the newspaper article talking about how bad the smog has been recently. Then we have a postcard from our friend Marianne. She is telling us about her travels in Sicily, where she came across the windmillwort, which is a plant that only grows in this area. According to the locals, the plant can purify the air, but it's difficult to grow because it only thrives when the temperature is exactly right. This gives us two clues: first, where the plant is from, Sicily, and secondly, we'll need to get the temperature right in the room to help the plant grow. Once you find clues, you can open your book to allocate the clues to the plants they are related to. This is useful once you start collecting clues for multiple plants. The next clue we discover tells us the ideal soil temperatures for different plants. We know windmillwort is from Sicily, now we just need to know what type of flower it is to get the correct temperature. This information can be found on the next poster, which tells us that it's a volcanic flower. We have officially collected all the clues, now all that's left to do is grow our plant. So according to this poster, the temperature will need to be 60 degrees Celsius. Each plant has a specific spot where it would need to be placed. You will be able to identify these by the saucers placed around the house. This is where our windmillwort will need to go. First, I'll set the temperature to 60 by using the wheel. You can see the temperature on the dial to the left. Now we'll get our plant, which we've already potted, and carry it to the saucer. Then we're going to push the button to open up the airways, and we can stand back and watch the magic happen. We've officially grown our first plant and completed our first entry in our book. This will also unlock your first achievement, growing the windmill wort. I'm going to grab my flower and take it with me for the next part, but you can leave it here and come back for it later if you wish. We'll put it down here for a sec while we collect everything at the gate. First we'll collect the key, which will give us access to the entrance garden and the main house. You can read the sign, which is just a notice for anyone visiting to drop any deliveries here and to ring the bell to notify us. The last thing you can interact with here is the manor sign. We'll collect our flower again and make our way over to the garden entrance. Once we unlock the gate, we'll get to view the main house for the first time. Here we'll find another workstation where we can plant some new seeds. Then to the left we have the flower room, which will be the home of my new plant. One of the achievements requires you to fill each of the saucers in this room with a plant, so I will be bringing back all the flowers I plant here. You can also plant the same flower and place the same one in each saucer, just as long as all the spots are filled. I'll be completing 2 achievements now. The first is to take a break. This requires you to sit on any of the seating around the house. Then while we're taking a break, we'll sit a bit longer and unlock the 3rd achievement, which is take a nap. This one requires you to sit down for at least 1 minute on any seating. These are both pretty easy to complete, and it's the perfect time to run for snacks. The only other item you'll find in this room is a letter from our sister Elizabeth, who wishes us well on our trip to London. From this letter, we can tell that our character is in her 50s. There is not much else to the letter, and this is not one of our clues, so we won't need to add this onto our book. Next we find our first duck. There are 5 in total scattered around the house. You will need to inspect each of these because there are 2 achievements linked to the ducks. The first we will unlock now, which is Quack Quack, for inspecting a duck. Once we have found all 5 ducks, we will be able to complete the second. Once you enter the house, you will unlock Chapter 2, Survivors of Adversity, in your book. We will now need to collect clues for 2 new plants, the fulguria and the ash plume. On the table, we will find a letter from Robert Hinchley, a genealogist. He has created our family tree for us. A key piece of information here is that the family tree reflects the maiden names of all the female family members rather than their married ones. This information will be important for later, so keep a mental note of this. Then you can have a look at the family tree he has created. Again, this piece of information will be important later, so keep a mental note of where to find this. Next we find some luggage which I assume is ours from our trip, and we find a train ticket from Taunton to London. In the next room we'll find our next seed packet, which contains fulguria. And on the table, you will find 3 photographs each with a date and message on the back. So our character has purchased a new camera to use on one of her flowers. It's taken us some time to get used to the mechanics, but it looks like we finally managed to get a clear photo of this beautiful plant. In the next room, we'll find a chemistry set with an assortment of chemicals and a vial to place them in. There is also a bucket to dispose the chemicals in, should you make an error. We will need to continue looking for clues to figure out what we'll be using this for. Next we find a book called The Art of Painting. In the next room we find a book sharing a botanical folk tale. It tells the story of a Celtic tribe's coming-of-age ritual where young people would need to go into the woods during a thunderstorm to pick a specific flower. Let's add some of our clues to our book. First the photographs and then the folklore book. These are both clues for growing the fulguria. In the next room we find a photograph of our character and her sister Elizabeth. Now we can unlock the next achievement, the piano woman. All you need to do is interact with the piano to play a tune. Then we'll find our next key, which will unlock the back terrace. Then on the desk we will find our next 2 clues. First is a letter from our neighbor farmer Charles. He is complaining about some strange flashing lights coming from our back room, and it's been scaring his cows and causing his milk production to decrease. He asks if we could please keep the flashing lights to a minimum. Next we find a bottle of flash powder. This is an important clue because it gives us the list of chemicals needed to make flash powder and how much of each we'll need. The recipe is 2 potassium and 1 magnesium. We can add these clues to our book. Next we find the camera we learned about earlier. This is probably the flashing lights our farmers' cows have been witnessing. We can also see there is a saucer set up for a plant, so we'll need to bring out potted plant here. Then on the table, we'll find our final clue which tells us how to use the camera. And we'll find a pair of glasses to protect our eyes from the flashing lights. We now have all the clues to grow our fulguria. But before we start planting our flower, I want to clear another achievement off my list. For this one you need to mix a batch of chemicals, but not the one needed for the flash powder. So just put any 3 chemicals in here. Then make your way back to the camera with the flask. Put the chemicals in the camera and close the back part. Then push the button to try take a photo. You should see smoke coming from the camera, which means you have completed the achievement. Boom. Now we can take our flask back and mix up the correct chemicals. We'll need 2 parts potassium and 1 part magnesium. Now that our camera is ready, we can head over to a workstation to get our plant ready. Now we just need to take it back to the room and place it on the saucer. With our flower pot in the right spot, we can hit the button again and this time watch the magic happen. We have successfully grown our first fulguria and completed the entry in our book. This will also earn you the achievement for growing the fulguria. I'm going to pick up my plant to add to my collection in the flower room. Now we can start collecting our clues for the next plant in our book, the ash plume. The first clue will be this Dartmoor poster, which shows different places of interest in Dartmoor. Further down the hallway we have this book, which explains what pyrophiles are. This book provides some important clues on how to grow our next plant. The first clue is that some plants have a tough exterior shell which will only crack under certain circumstances, and the second clue is that some plants can only grow when they are surrounded by smoke. We found the key to the back terrace earlier, so let's open up this door to see what we can discover here. This door is locked, but this is the perfect opportunity to complete another achievement. By shaking a locked door we will earn the achievement, "Let me in." We have another workstation out here. We found another book. This one is called Flowering Plants of Great Britain. There's nothing else up here, so let's go down the stairs. Here we can collect our next seed packet. This time round it's the ash plume. While I have my book open, I can add the 2 clues we've already collected. You'll also find your next clue on the table. This is a list of all the plants we uncovered during our travels and where we found them. You will need to take note that ash plume was discovered in Wistman's woods. We'll add that to the list of clues uncovered. Here on the little balcony we'll find another letter. This one is from our friend Grace, telling us about some gray squirrels she had brought from the Americas. They have made a home for themselves in her garden, but she finds it strange, because since the arrival of the gray squirrels, she's not seen any of the red ones around. This is not one of our clues, so we can't add it to our book. Further down we have another balcony. Here you will find your next key. This one will unlock the door to the kitchen. And next to it you will find some notes from Hazel. She mentions that Jimmy has broken another mortar and that she fears we will not be pleased by this news. There is also a list of items needed for the kitchen. These don't form part of our clues, but it's a fun little touch of detail to make the story feel a bit richer. I think we found everything we could out here, and it's probably time to head indoors to find the kitchen. The kitchen can be located on the other end of the hallway. The first item you can interact with is a religious blessing gifted to the house by Nicholas Owen. This again is not a clue for our current plant, but it does form part of another mystery in the story which we'll get to soon. This will be the next important clue which we'll need to collect in order to grow our ash plume. It is Hazel's Priceless Recipes, and it contains the recipe for roasted chestnuts. We'll not be making any food, but it does give us a clue on how to break a tough exterior shell. Next on the table you will find another leaflet about Dartmoor. It's an advertisement for the Society of Historians and a lecture they will be giving on the history of Dartmoor. They will be talking about how earlier settlers had used fire to clear large sections of the natural forest which once thrived there. You can also find the broken mortar which Hazel had referenced in her earlier notes. The next item you'll find is in the kindling box. It's a letter addressed to us from the University College London. It seems our character had made an application to study at the institution, but they had rejected her purely on the basis of her being a woman. Clearly, our character did not care much for their response, and the letter is now used for nothing more than kindling to start the fire. This is quite befitting, as I'm sure this only fueled her own fire to keep pursuing her dreams. Next we're heading through the door and finding ourselves in a small dining area, where we will find our next clue. This one is a poem about Wistman's woods, and if you remember, one of our earlier clues told us that ash plume grew in these woods. The key bit of information you'll need to remember from this poster is the oak trees. Another item we'll find here is our second duck. Remember, we'll need to collect 5 of these. Next up, there is a card on the dining table from Mr. Bennett to Hazel. He's picked some roses for her from the garden and has invited her to join him for tea in the formal garden. How sweet! Once you head up the stairs and through the door, you'll find a small outdoor garden. Here are some storage containing different types of wood. And from all our clues we have collected until now, I can assume we're going to need some of the oak logs. But we'll need to figure out how to use them first. Then we can inspect this book which explains how to use a home smokery, which is probably what we will need the different types of wood for. Through this door is where we'll find the smokery and the pit where we would need to place the logs. We can also see we have a saucer in here, so we know where to place our ash plume. I believe we've collected all the clues now, so let's allocate them all to the ash plume. And now we can put all the clues together to grow another spectacular plant. Let's go find a workstation to start the process. Once you water the seed, you'll notice it doesn't germinate like the others have. That's because there is something extra we'll need to do for this one. Grab your potted plant and head back over to the kitchen. Then you're going to place it on the pan hanging over the fire. Stand back and watch the heat do its thing. This will earn you another achievement called crack. Now grab your plant and head back over to the smokery. Place it on the saucer and then head over to the firewood to collect an oak log. Place the log in the fire pit, then stand back and watch your beautiful plant grow in this strange environment. This will earn you the achievement for growing the ash plume. We've completed the entry for the ash plume. What a beautiful fiery flower. I'm going to grab my plant so I can take it to the flower room to join my slowly growing collection. I also have a delivery at the gate, so we'll make our way over there once we place the ash plume in its spot. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the pantry. We'll be exploring that soon enough. Now let's head over to the gatehouse to see what has been delivered. The orchard key has been delivered, so we'll be able to explore a new area. But I'm going to end this video here for today. If you enjoyed playing with me today, please leave this video a like and don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. I hope to see you next time as we uncover more mysteries and grow beautiful flora.